Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday afternoon. Hope yours is going well. We've got another Seahawks video to get to today, but first, we just hit 3,900 subscribers to the channel. I want to give a shout out to all the subscribers, and a special tip of the cap goes to the channel members, especially new Elite channel member Cassio Feria, who joins previous Elite channel members Brendon, Mikel, Hasher, Salacious, Crumb, Ryguy, Brendan Nelson's Haircut, VGK Tigers, ItsHoof, The Reno, TVO, Austin Roberts, Scott Todd, PH Glass, Aaron Garrett, Arfman, 12th Man, and Eli Bennett 44. All right, so in the last few days, as I've talked about some of the salary cap ramifications of bringing in these new rookies, bringing in some veterans in the coming couple of months, I've had a fair few people ask, well, what does that mean for the 2022 salary cap? They're thinking about the future, which is always good. You want to be thinking about how what you do now affects what your team will end up looking like in the future. This team has certainly done a fair amount of kicking the can down the road in this regard already. We have done void years on a few different contracts, meaning we will be paying players against the salary cap in future years when they will not be on the team. And we also know that we're probably going to be looking at some dead money in future years for other contracts that we're going to release. So I decided to go ahead and do a little bit of research to try to determine exactly what the 2022 salary cap for the Seattle Seahawks might look like. Because the salary cap is about to skyrocket. The salary cap is about to blow up. This year, it going down is a one-time aberration. It's not going to happen again, and if anything, it's going to be corrected by this time next year. So, for those of you out there who are wondering how the 2022 salary cap looks for the Seahawks as of right now, I've done some research to try to determine what the numbers might look like, and let's dive in, take a look, and see where we're probably going to stand. Okay, so first, we're going to take a look at the contracts that we have on the books for 2022 that are overwhelmingly likely to stand. Now, some of these contracts can be restructured. Some of these contracts, you might see them redone or extended. But as of right now, I think it's fair to assume that every contract listed here is going to stand pat for the 2022 season. So we have two big contracts on the books right now for 2022. Russell Wilson, $37 million, Lockett, $10 million. These cap hits are likely to stand. I don't think they can be moved that much. The Wilson cap hit, and we'll come back to this later, it could be made bigger if we restructure him this year. But we'll come back to that at the end of the video. We have Poona Ford making about $9.7 million against the cap. Gabe Jackson, $9 million. Dunlap, $6.5 million. Chris Carson, $6.5 million. Jason Myers, $5 million. You might see him extended to reduce this cap hit a little bit. Kerry Hyder, $3.7 million. LJ Collier, $3.5 million. Jordan Brooks, $3.3 million. Marquise Blair, about $2 million. Daryl Taylor, 1.8. Damian Lewis, 1.3. Cody Barton, 1.2. Tyler Ott, 1.2. Philip Haynes, 1.1. Ugo Amadi, 1.1. Colby Parkinson, 1.1. Ben Burkervin, 1.05. DJ Dallas, 1 million. Travis Homer, $1 million. Alton Robinson, $1 million. Freddie Swain, 900,000. Brian Mills. Now we're getting down into the bottom of the barrel, the guys who are making less than $1 million. Connor Weddington, Tamorian Terry, and then you have some of the rookies from this year, Dwayne Eskridge, Trey Brown, Stone Forsythe. They're making combined about $4 million in 2022. And finally, we have a collection of players that I call fodder. And these are, I think, 8 players. Yeah, I think it's 8 players who are making less than $1 million in 2022 that is fully non-guaranteed. So you're going to see some of those guys get cut before the season starts because they have no guaranteed money, but it's hard to know exactly who. It's like Patrick Carr, it's Jared Hawker, it's Jake Curhan, guys like that. Some of those guys are not going to make the team because there's no guaranteed money, but we don't know who. For the purposes of this video, I assume that all of them are going to make the team in 2022, but that's probably not going to be the case. So if you add up all their combined cap hits in 2022, it comes to 6.6 million. And that gets you to 38 players total. So everything in this list right here, 38 total players. And that subtotal, after you have 38 total players, is $123 million against the cap. 123 million. All right, let's keep counting. What else are we going to have against the cap in 2022? We have dead cap hits, and I've made a couple of assumptions here, but they are educated assumptions. And frankly, I would be a little disappointed if most, if not all, of my assumptions here did not come true. So, 2022 dead cap hits. Number one is Bobby Wagner. Okay, Bobby Wagner is going to count $20 million against the 2022 cap. If we cut him, he only counts $3.75 million. So please tell me this team is smart enough to know that you want to save that $16 million plus. We will save over $16 million by letting Bobby Wagner go before 2022 starts. So I fully expect this team to be smart enough to do that. We might bring him back on a much reduced salary. We might extend him to make the cap hit a lot less in 2022. But if I had to guess right now, I'm just going to say we cut him, and that's where we move on. You know, a decade with Bobby Wagner. It was a good decade, but time to move on. $3.75 million for Wagner's dead cap hit. Benson Mayowa is due like $3 or $4 million in 2022. If you cut him after June 1st, he's only due $750,000. So I'm going to say we do that as well because we're kind of crowded on the defensive line right now. So I think Mayo is probably going to be gone post June 1st in 2022, and we're going to owe him $750,000. Nick Bellore is going to be due like $2.6 million, and with all due respect to Nick Bellore, he's a fullback. So I don't think we're going to actually keep him around to pay him close to $3 million against the cap. You can cut him and save $2 million. So I expect us to do that. Put a dead cap hit on the 2022 cap of $600,000. You can bring him back. You can maybe rework his contract a little bit. But this offense doesn't use a fullback. It's tough for me to believe we're going to be paying that kind of money to a special team player. So I have Bellore gone. And then we have some void year cap hits that cannot be worked around because that's how we structured contracts this year. Gerald Everett, $2 million, Ethan Posick, $1 million, and Cedric Ogwehi, $350,000. So those are just going to be on the books no matter what. And that gets the subtotal up to $131.5 million. $131.5 million for those players plus these dead cap hits. All right, moving along. Extensions. Let's talk extensions, people, because there are two elite players on this team who are probably going to get extended. One this offseason and the next offseason. Jamal Adams, I don't think he's going to be wanting to play 2021 on the fifth-year option. So we're going to extend him this offseason. I've taken some guesses on what that contract might look like, but it's really hard to know what the exact cap hits per year are going to be. So I took a shot here. I think that the first year cap hit for Jamal Adams is going to be $6 or $7 million, somewhere in there. And as for the second year cap hit, which is the cap hit you're going to be looking at in 2022, I said $13 million. It could easily be a few million more, could easily be a few million less. But you obviously want to structure things out in a way that works for your team while also not putting too much money at the back end. So I said $13 million. That's just my best guess right now. And then we have DK Metcalf, who after 2021 will be entering his fourth season, meaning he can start negotiating for an extension, meaning he can actually hold out if we don't extend him. So I expect DK Metcalf to ask for a real contract going into 2022. Now that contract is probably going to give Metcalf somewhere between 20 to 25 million a year, but the first year cap hit can be kept relatively tame. So for the purposes of this video, I took a guess. I said 11 million. That first year cap hit, 11 million, and then it accelerates as the years go on. So 11 million is the cap hit for 2022 for DK Metcalf. That gets you to 40 players. Okay, chugging right along. The estimated value of the 2022 draft picks, because we have 7 draft picks right now. We have 7 draft picks in 2022. If we keep all of them at their current positions, the approximate cap hit for those draft picked players is going to be about 6 million. We don't have a first round pick again. We have 2 fourth round picks. Obviously, we're going to be wheeling and dealing a little bit. You could expect this number to go up by maybe a million because we're going to accumulate a couple more picks. It could go down by a little bit if we trade up, but you're probably looking at about a $6 million cap charge for the 2022 draft picked rookies. So that gets you to 47 total players, and the subtotal after all that is $161.5 million. Okay? $161.5 million. Now, the estimated cap hit, I'm sorry. Oop, there we go. Okay, the estimated salary cap for 2022, according to experts, is about $200 million. Okay? $200 million. Meaning that after you take care of the contracts we have on the books, estimated dead money, extensions, and 2022 draft picks, you are left with $38.5 million in cap room. $38.5 million. That is my current estimate for 2022 Seahawks cap space. Now, let's keep it going. Let's keep the estimations going. Let's keep guessing at what the team may do. So, I made a list of notable free agents for the Seattle Seahawks going into the 2022 offseason. Notable free agents. We got 5 right here who it's hard to know how much money they might get next offseason, right? Because it depends on how they play. Quandre Diggs is the one guy on this list who we can safely assume is going to get some big money because he had a Pro Bowl season in 2020 and he's probably going to be good again this year. But it's hard to know exactly what kind of contract we might be getting at, so it's hard to estimate his cap hit for 2022 if we brought him back. Gerald Everett, same deal. It's going to depend on how he plays. Brandon Shell, Akella Witherspoon, Ethan Posick. It depends on how they play. So I'm not going to estimate those cap hits right now. But what I am going to do is take a look at some of the lower level free agents that we have coming up here and try to estimate what their cap hits might be if they are players that I imagine us bringing back. So let's go ahead and take a look into the future and try to take some shots here. So first couple players we're going to take a look at here, we have Rashad Penny and Aldon Smith. I don't think we're going to bring either of these guys back, so I just assume they're gone. Even if Penny has a good season, I think there's too much baggage, and we would just prefer to get another running back who isn't injured all the time. Aldon Smith, probably not even going to play for us. Even if he does, I have a bad feeling that the drama of this offseason is just going to make him not be a very effective player. And even if he is, we might just not bring him back because we don't think that, we don't want to have that drama around here. So even if he plays and plays pretty well for us, I don't think Aldon Smith's coming back. I would also say we're not going to bring back a DJ Reed because we kind of drafted his clone in the draft. So I think DJ Reed's probably gone. And Trey Flowers, he's not going to play enough to undo his reputation. And his reputation is one of being bad from last year. He had his chance, he blew it. I don't think he's going to play enough in 2021 to prove otherwise. So I think he's gone. Carroll's just going to be like, okay, let me go draft a new guy. I'm good at that anyway. I like to do that anyway. Why re-sign a cornerback who has already looked pretty bad when we can just go get a new guy? Now, there are some guys at the bottom end of our free agent pool that I do think we will likely bring back or at least have a really good chance. And they're all going to be relatively cheap because they haven't really done anything in the NFL, and they're not going to play enough to prove that they're really good in 2021 in all likelihood. Ryan Neal, I think we're going to bring him back to be maybe a new safety to replace Diggs when he leaves. But he's not going to play that much in 2022 probably, or 2021 probably. So he's going to be due vet min plus. Rasheem Green, same deal. I like Rasheem Green. I think it's up in the air whether or not he comes back. But either way, he's not really going to play that much in 2021 unless Aldon Smith doesn't play. And even then, he might not play that much. So there's not going to be that much of an opportunity for him to prove he's worth big bucks. Brian Monet, same deal. I think Brian Monet is nice to have around. I want to bring him back next year probably, but I don't think he's going to play enough to warrant big bucks. So I have $1.5 million for him, probably just a vet min plus 1 year deal. And Will Dissly, his physical limitations are pretty obvious, so same deal, $1.5 million. The exact cap hits, if things go as I foresee, are Going to be a little different than everyone just getting 1.5 million, but it's a reasonable estimate for now for our purposes. And then Michael Dickson is probably going to get a contract that sets the record for a punter. He's probably going to get a contract that gives him about 4 million a year. But that first year cap hit could be 2 to 3 million. I said 2.5 million. It could easily be off by a little bit, but not by a lot. Probably going to be a cap hit of around 2.5 million. So that gets you to 52 players, by the way. So we're already pretty close to a full up roster if things go as I foresee. And when you put all these hypothetical cap hits on the books, you got yourself how much cap space? $30 million. Okay? $30 million at the end of all this. So you can do quite a bit with $30 million, especially because of how you can backload contracts. But keep in mind, this $30 million can be used one of three ways, basically, and that's it. One, you could make the cap hits for Jamal Adams and DK Metcalf in these years a little bigger in order to get more of it out of the way so you have less of it in the future. You can re-sign your outgoing free agents, Diggs, Everett, Shell, Witherspoon, Posick, or you can bring in new free agents from other teams. That's where this $30 million can go. So even though I think players are going to be looking for more money than ever because the cap's about to blow up, you can make $30 million go a pretty long way in an offseason. You can bring in a lot of veterans. You can bring in quality free agents. And to loop back around to something that I was talking about at the start of this video, restructuring contracts and the impact it might have. If you restructure Russell Wilson, his cap hit in 2022 goes up to about 43 million, 6 million more. Restructuring Jason Myers puts the cap hit from 5 million to about 6.2 million. Call it 6. So if you restructure Wilson now and restructure Myers now, you're going to be looking at the cap room going down to about 23 million. That's still pretty good. With 23 million in cap room for 2022, you could bring back Quandre Diggs. You could bring back Gerald Everett even if he has a really good season. You could bring back Brandon Shell. You could bring in some blue chip defensive line talent. You could bring in blue chip offensive line talent. You could bring in all kinds of different stuff. And as long as you're smart with how you distribute out contracts, you can make it all make sense. So as of right now, what I would say is this. Don't worry too much about 2022. The cap is going to blow up. And if you take a look at the way the salary cap projects for the Seahawks right now, we're going to be fine. Having Dwayne Brown come off the books because you know he's going to retire is big. And remember, in a perfect world, we're going to be replacing Dwayne Brown's $13.5 million cap hit with Stone Forsythe's $1 million cap hit. If that works out, that is a huge savings. We're going to be replacing guys like Ahkello Witherspoon making $4 million with Brian Mills making $800,000. So there are going to be some real savings here. And while we do have to worry about how much money we're going to give Jamal and how much money we're going to give Metcalf, and of course Wilson and Lockett, there are going to be big savings in a few areas on this team. So with that, I'm going to get out of here. Peace out. Go Hawks. This is how I see the 2022 salary cap breaking out for us right now. If you have any big disagreements or you think I got something wrong, let me know in the comments. But don't worry about kicking the can down the road because the road ahead is pretty damn big. All right. See you guys in stream in a little bit.